welcome to Season 2 of the Spotlight series, Don't Just Survive, Thrive. Most of us have experienced challenging times in our lives, particularly over the last few months of 2020. The key is how we choose to respond, whether we merely survive or thrive. My name is Nicola Steele, founder of JJP Talent Solutions, an Australian IT recruitment company. With over 20 years' expertise, I provide insights on how you can transform your career to the next level. The focus of Season 2 is around reinvention and how we can thrive in the new normal. In this podcast, I speak to experts from a variety of professions, including HR, technology, marketing, and business coaching. I don't have all the answers. However, collectively, we can instill hope, clarity, and inspiration. I hope you enjoy listening. I'm delighted to introduce Mel Telecican. Mel is the owner and head strategist of Loyalist.com. She specialises in marketing strategy, especially analysing why previous marketing efforts didn't work and which marketing efforts are worth investing in. Mel, thank you for joining me on Season 2, Episode 4 of the Spotlight series, Don't Just Survive, Thrive.
Thanks, Nicola. Good to be here. Season 2, I love it.
Thank you.
Episode 4, that's brilliant.
So, Mel, tell me more about you and what you do.
Sure. As you mentioned, Loyalist is our business and we're a digital marketing agency. And essentially, we do a whole range of things. We do automation, we do database development, we do content marketing. But I think probably what we're best known for is a service where I guess the best way to explain it is, you know how lots of successful leaders and businesses are very present everywhere? They're publishing articles, they're creating video content, they're across platforms, that sort of thing. Well, that's pretty much what we do. And we specialise in helping professional services have that reach and be essentially to help them scale their reputation. They've already got a good reputation, but just really levelling up and going from there.
Yes, and bringing it all together as well.
Yeah, that's right. I think as a marketer, our business is in the business of giving people clarity, because as far as marketing goes, there's a lot of unknowns for people who aren't in that space, and there are so many marketing avenues. I know what we do well is we help give people clarity around what it is that they probably shouldn't have done in the past, when you can have a look at evidence and stats and wonderful things like that. Give reasoning to people around why that may not have been a good move, and then essentially find opportunities for what people could be doing to leverage off what they're doing well already, or opportunities for optimization. I think better way to spend funds than sort of, trying different approaches and hoping for the best.
Absolutely. And it makes perfect sense. However, I guess at the moment, quite a lot of companies are going to be really mindful of their cash flow. So should they be investing in marketing now during the current crisis, or just taking a break, saving their funds? What would your advice be?
So this one's an interesting question, and I'm glad that you had this down for me to answer, because I truly think that it's different for every business, and it depends how you look at your marketing. So some people see marketing and advertising as the same thing. So whether it be that they've got to take some ad space or an advertorial, or let's say a billboard, or a newspaper ad, things like that, more advertising, even though it's content in there, more advertising based. Those sort of initiatives, I think, may be helpful at this point in time if the audience is looking there. But I think in terms of, if you were going to spend money on marketing, you want to choose the most cost-effective means for the biggest bang for your buck. And to be brutally honest, if you haven't got a database in place, or if you haven't been doing anything up until now, advertising probably is your only option, because marketing yourself can be harder to do because marketing, I think, in its true sense, is about lots of touch points over time and building up trust at a distance. It's one thing to have to try to go out and get in contact with the people you already have a relationship with and try to leverage that. And it's another to try to go out there to a broader market where you have had no presence or no connection at all. And that's where it can get really, really expensive. I wrote an article not that long ago about whether people should be marketing right now. And I think the other side of this is about messaging. So there's some lots of marketing out there because naturally that's what people think they need to be doing when they need to get, let's say, clients in the door or customers buying. But I think messaging is really key to that. And when people are in a reactive state and they're really, genuinely stressed about their businesses and being able to keep employees on and things like that, marketing messaging often is really poorly done because it's done pretty quickly and without a whole lot of real strategic thinking around it. So, yes, I think people should be marketing, but I think they should be thinking about their messaging really well. And I think they should be looking at all of the opportunities that exist for them from a perspective of, let's say, looking at something like Google Analytics, which is, looking at the back end of your website and having a look at, where the opportunities lie in existing traffic that's coming to particular pages and start doing some work potentially there if there's opportunities there. I think it can just get very expensive very quickly and very fruitless without a really solid investigation first and then strategizing off the back of that.
So looking at what you've got already and then, as you say, making that strategy. And I like what you brought up about what kind of content that you're actually using at the moment. So I think I discussed with you that I had these great plans in January, had content I was going to share on a daily basis. And then when the whole COVID thing really hit Australia, just felt really wrong, really inappropriate what I was sharing and at best poorly timed or possibly even insensitive. So as a marketing expert, what would you suggest for organizations to design a marketing strategy that is well timed, isn't insensitive?
Yeah, I think it's first of all, it's the recognition, right? You've already done that, and so many businesses have. Some people haven't because they've already got things in play and I guess sort of ticked that box. So it's first of all, being open to that. I think the reality is, like all the other elements in our business, and this is going to be hard for people to hear, it has to be agile. I know for the clients that we're working with right now, we're normally 1 month or 2 months sometimes ahead of schedule in our planning because we've got an SEO strategy in place and we're doing a whole bunch of things to have bigger, longer term results. But what we've had to do is go, okay, well, all that stuff that we had ready to go, it's not even necessarily insensitive in these situations. It's just not relevant. It's relevant, probably for a portion of the market, but you've got to look at opportunity, right? So, if I think about one firm we're working with, just to give you an example of how sort of thinking is that, we were going to do an article which is really important about how sometimes people who have superannuation policies, when they pass away, some Australian government superannuation funds that are old but still in existence have these structures that mean that even though people have their conditions in their will for who they'd like that money to go to and all that sort of stuff, there is absolutely no way that could actually happen because people don't know about the way particular funds are set up. And that's devastating, right? That's super important stuff. But we were due to put that out right at the beginning of this pandemic. We're talking about death. Is it the best time for that? Well, not really. Not really. Maybe not insensitive because it's helpful information. People need to know it. It's really important any day of the week. But what is the most important thing? Well, it's not that. Let's think about what else we can bring to the market that's relevant. And so what we have done is gone, okay, well, now we've got all these issues of people who still need to get things done that are really urgent, really important, impact people's lives. So, no, let's rewrite the content. Let's get on a phone call. Let's have that conversation. Let's unpack that. And it's a lot more work, but gee, it's had a great result. And so it's about, really taking that agile approach because from this week, at least in Queensland where I am, things have changed since yesterday. We've got a couple of grades going back to school as we record this, but other grades not. So, depending on what type of business we're talking about that we're promoting, the content has to be relevant. And you want it to be, because there is a timeline attached to pushing different things out, you've got to sort of plan and be open to a few different options. Similarly, I guess, to how the news works, right? You've sort of got to bring the most relevant news to date, and all those other news stories that we thought would be helpful at the beginning of the day at 6 p.m. news are no longer helpful. So while that might sound unattainable, I think I don't want to make it sound unattainable, because it's really not, but it has to be relevant. Otherwise, it's wasted energy, I think.
Yes, and it is constantly changing, which you made that comment about season 2 is because season 1 was about when we were really in the thick of it, and now I don't know whether it's a recovery phase, but we're getting back to the new normal, so to
That's
speak.
it. We're in this wonderful space of like hope now and sort of good news.
Yes.
And so if you were still talking about, the other content of like we're right in the midst of it, not as relevant for sure.
Absolutely. And I love that, actually. Hope is probably a better word than recovery phase, that we're in Australia in a good position. So you talk about being agile. I think you might have used the word pivot, which is floating around a lot at the moment. If you could give me some examples of companies who have done that pivot successfully in their offering.
So I've sort of seen two parts to this. I've seen people who have pivoted super effectively, and then I've seen people who have explicitly said, we're not pivoting. This is going to end, and we're going to stick to our guns because what we do is really important. And for us to move our energy and our resources and everything else to somewhere else would not be wise. So I think that's really interesting, because lots of talk about pivoting, and pivoting is great when you've got nowhere to go and your business is, literally dead in the water unless you pivot. But I do think it's been really interesting to observe. And that particular person has got a speaking business that helps speakers, and the whole speaking circuit has naturally died. International travel died. All that money and revenue that was due to happen for those people is stopped. So her business model is about helping people like that step it up. She could have completely gone down another avenue, but very much sticking to it. And I think that's definitely got a place for some people. But in terms of others, I think that, the obvious one that sticks out for me is how quickly distilleries jumped on the hand sanitizer movement, because there was a genuine lack of product. I remember we drove around for a long time trying to find methylated spirits to have that right at the beginning of this pandemic, and it was like, why can't we get it anywhere? But so interestingly, pivoting needs to happen fairly quickly to have the impact you want it to have. But then it's only, I think, if you're going to pivot, it's only powerful or really effective if you've already got, say, for example, in that instance, distribution channels already in place, already got a market that you're very connected to, because otherwise, let's say you're a small distillery who just relies on, let's say the existing relationships that you have, B2C, let's say, for argument's sake, it wouldn't be enough to warrant having to change things perhaps, or you end up with all this product that you can't sell beyond the end of the pandemic. So it's, I thought that's probably the exciting one. I thought they did it really well. But everyone sort of jumped on the bandwagon then. But again, the person with the largest database, I believe, wins in that situation, the one with the marketing channels in place. They've got the biggest opportunity. So.
And also doing social good to a certain extent.
Totally. Oh, yeah. How great's that? To be able to do that, to get your team to be creating the recipe to do that effectively, to serve like that, not necessarily for profit, 100%.
Definitely. And I heard another story. Do you know a company called Stage Kings?
No. Tell me about it.
So I think they're Sydney based, and they create big stages for events and what have you, which are obviously aren't happening.
Yeah.
But what they've done is now they create flat pack furniture, and have a look at it, because it's really gorgeous furniture. And they'll probably continue doing it when they can start doing the stages again. So they're a really good example of companies pivoting as well.
Actually, as you're talking about that, I'm thinking about another one I did see on television, which people would have probably seen, and that was that the hospital staff, I think in Sydney or Melbourne, were lacking in uniforms because the volume of the amount of people were having to work at one time, laundering process, all of that sort of thing. So they were needing new uniforms made up, and it was a clothing business that had essentially stopped because no one was needing any of that those custom outfits. They created patterns and they got to making those frontline workers, which is incredible. Sometimes it's just the suggestion of one person, and the energy and the gusto of one person to make it happen, pull everyone together and get it going.
And as well, I think another one was Louis Vuitton doing face masks. I don't know how expensive they were. But when it does get back to normal, like proper normal, or we've come out the other side, companies that have done that and done that social good aspect, that's marketing in itself, really.
Yes.
You think about them really positively and support them in the future as well.
Yeah, I think so. I'm not sure about the Louis Vuitton thing. I'm not sure if they contribute financially to anything. Not to take away from them, but sometimes there's making money and then there's jumping on the bandwagon. I don't know.
To be honest with you, Mel, I'm not entirely sure, and I don't know whether it's just the Kardashians wearing them or the nurses. So I'm not 100% sure, but I mean more from like, for example, the distilleries and making the hand sanitizer, coming up with that really fabulous idea.
I think even just the move of my local IGA, I know it was procedure. They put in a basin and paper towel, and they had the pumps there for people. They greeted all of us. They made sure that every single one of us was like, "Hi, can you please do this?" That just gave everybody a sense of that whole, I know that phrase, we're all in this together, but that sense of community. They were not letting anybody in without doing that, and that just it increased conversation, but it just, I think it did tie people together even from that perspective. Yeah, so many great opportunities. I think with the takeaway businesses, the restaurants, I think people have really embraced that wherever they could, because, they're obviously really hard hit, low margins in those sort of businesses. So, people moved quickly.
Definitely. And I think as well, as you said about that connection in IGA, but generally, despite the social distancing, we do seem to be more connected to each other and want to help each other more generally, albeit 1.5 meters apart.
That's right. Yeah, there's nothing quite like a crisis. Now, think about the 2011 floods here in Brisbane, and we were living in inner city, and it affected not where we lived, but lots of other streets nearby. And the connection there for inner city was enormous, because essentially, you're having to, those are the people that you see every day but haven't perhaps thought to make a connection with. In that instance, in the 2011 floods, we were in other people's homes getting mud out of their, lower floors and things like that. Yeah, it is quite interesting. And especially, I guess that not being able to see family in real life, it's quite the wake-up call, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I moved here the year after the 2011 flood, so I wasn't a part of that, but we did watch it from the UK and see that mateship that you have in Australia and in Brisbane about bringing everyone together, which was really fabulous. So another question as well is, how has this crisis changed social media engagement, would you say?
I think this is observation only. I don't have any stats or, tracking so much on this, but I think that it sort of connects back to what we're talking about. It's just evolved daily. So everything has to be in real time, I think, in terms of commentary. It can't be, too far planned in advance. I think it's a chance for people to share stories. It's a chance for people to educate on what they're doing right now and how that's working. And, I think especially when you're talking about, different states and territories having different regulations and rules on things, it's meant that people either have gone quiet on that platform because it's just too hard to manage, or there's some people who are really, or businesses that are really coming to the forefront because they are doing it, with a strategy in mind, but they're doing it every other day and bringing people stories that are relevant. And I think that, again, that word hope's going to come into it, is that, there are problems that need to be solved, even though there is great hope right now and optimism and positivity because the numbers are dropping. But it's definitely about educating people in the right way. That means that you're actually going to help them not identify the problems, but work with what they're already identified for themselves as an issue. So yeah, a bit of a delicate balance, I think, of not pushing the sell too much. As always, I think it's about serving first, but serving with very clear guidelines. And in marketing, there's some really clear frameworks that people just don't know or know and just don't implement. So with those in place, you can cover all those bases. You can appeal to people, you can be relevant, you can be up to date and get the cut through that you'd like.
And also humour as well.
Say that again.
Humour always works.
Humour, yeah, humour's great. I mean, humour gets great engagement. You've got to think about whether it matches your brand or not. Like if I think about, there's lots of great stuff, especially early on in the pandemic, right? I know with some of the other parents that I know, I've got a 7-year-old, we were sharing, great memes going around. It was hilarious, It's really slowed down on that front. But in terms of a brand and a business, definitely good, but it's got to match who you are, match who your brand is, and whether that's what we see when we meet you in real life. Like this morning I was looking at some marketing from a law firm who we don't work with, but I do know the gentleman who's one of the owners, and they put out some really funny content today. It was really clever, and it was basically, saying, we're lawyers, we're not, sitting by the pool, we're not baking, we're not doing all these things that people are saying that they're doing as part of, being in self-isolation. And there was videos of them in their homes, little snippets of things. Now, that works for them. They're very highly regarded law firm. They're really, they're not sloppy or too familiar or anything like that, but it works for them because it's a reflection of their personalities when you know them in real life. Different to, say, a firm that sort of presents differently when you meet with them in real life, and really personable as well. But that sort of marketing won't gel. It won't do anything for your brand long term, and it might get lots of likes, but we know likes don't mean a whole lot.
And on the subject of social media as well, so a lot of people are working from home still at the moment. How can companies use social media to really engage their employees?
Well, this is an interesting one, I think. So I think it's a perfect chance to highlight people in your business. So, I know we've seen the very sort of mainstream ways of doing that. This is, staff member of the week or whatever, we might see even in, say, something like Woolworths or Coles or whatever. Different to that, this is who this person is. This is what matters to them. This is how they've been managing, all with their consent, of course, but highlight the good that they're doing. For a lot of businesses out there, if you're able to keep your employees, they're working really hard probably for people to help them get through the other side of this as well. So, create parallel stories if you can't tell real stories to protect, the client's identity, but potentially share that. And, there's nothing quite like an employer or a business showcasing their people and, not just telling them they're proud of them, but broadcasting that to a broader audience. It's particularly important, I think, especially as we go through this transition that's going to happen, where we're going to have everyone coming back into workplaces, perhaps gradually. And, it's that sense of connection and community and appreciation that, naturally falls by the wayside in lots of businesses, because it's just what we believe that we need to do as businesses and in our jobs, but that's just part of the deal. But, yeah, public recognition is helpful. That's probably one way I'd say that. And also to, the other thing is that not everyone gets to see the fruits of their labour. If you think about all of the people that are involved potentially in an outcome, wouldn't it be great to be able to say, well, these people were part of that, and this is how it eventuated. This was the end result. Bit of storytelling.
Yeah, storytelling. And it's always good to get that pat on the back, be told you've done a good job, And even more so if it's out for the whole world to see there. So that's a great idea. And I've seen quite a few companies do that and really humanize the company as well. How companies treat their employees now, I think as well, is whether when we come out the other side, whether the employees actually want to stay with them or find companies that do recognise their talents more. So
it's hard, isn't it? Because, if the damage is done now, it's done, and it's hard to come back from. And I think, people appreciate that, these have been extenuating circumstances, but there's definitely a way to call back from that if some mistakes have been made. As long as, businesses and employers don't think that people are purely in a position where they have to keep their jobs. I think it's, definitely damage can be done during this time. And I've seen it happen to friends, to business owners, like myself, who've really been hit hard and maybe reacted where they shouldn't have. But people make mistakes as well. So it happens. People who do care for their people just got carried away because it was, stressful times.
And it's a difficult time for everyone. But I know it sounds very corny, but we are all in it together and we will come out the other side, hopefully stronger and better. And Mel, is there anything else that you'd particularly like to add?
Not particularly. I think for anybody in terms of the marketing side of things, maybe I'd add, just want to, I guess, encourage people to really have a look at facts and evidence around marketing before they go and spend money. That's probably where my industry gets a bad name in some ways, because people just feel like, marketers are out to get them or out to take advantage of them, those sort of things. Like, it's out there, right? You've heard it. It's how people are perceived. And I think, you've just got to look at things like Google Analytics. You've got to look at Google Search Console. You've got to have a look at your stats. And then you can make good decisions. And if you're armed with a little bit of knowledge, then you can feel confident about your next steps rather than having to put all of your hope and trust into just one place. I think it's like anything in your business, your financials. You don't just rely on your accountant and your admin people who are managing finances for you. You've got to have your head around a little bit of this so you can make good decision making. So those places are good places to start.
That's really great advice. Thank you very much for sharing your insights, Mel.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
Yes, my pleasure. And anything else at all?
No, I think that's it. I just want to say congratulations. You've pulled this together, this podcast, in a short amount of time. You're a gun. I can't believe the turnaround time that you've made this happen and produced it. And very impressive. I've had two podcasts now, and I can guarantee they did not get produced with the quality yours has in that amount of time. Well done.
Wow. Well, thank you very much, Mel. That's really kind. I didn't expect that, but
well, super timely, right? So this is the thing. This is that relevance piece, right? You wanted to do something that would serve, and you've absolutely made that happen. And it's not easy. I know that. So well done. Yeah. Congratulations.
Well, thank you. I hope that you enjoyed this episode. Please remember to subscribe, rate, and review. If you're looking for career advice, your next career opportunity, or to grow your tech team, then please call me, Nicola Steele, on 0499 773 546, or go to our website, jjptalent.com.au. The Don't Just Survive, Thrive podcast is part of the Spotlight series, which includes the YouTube channel, Spotlight on Software Development. If you want more insights into the software industry, particularly tech startups, then subscribe to the Spotlight on Software Development YouTube channel. Thank you for listening. Until next time.